Election headquarters. This is The Insiders with Dave Price.
Iowa's attorney general campaigns don't usually get a lot of conversation from voters, political parties, or campaign ads. They're not as high profile as a race for governor or Congress. And over the past several decades, they're really not that competitive on election night. However, as Iowa has moved more Republican red with voters, both of the parties this year think Democrat Tom Miller is in a competitive race. Now, Miller has held this position ever since 1979, except for a 4-year stretch where he ran for governor. His 39 combined years as Attorney General, those are more than any other Attorney General in the history of this country. But Republican Guthrie County Attorney Brenna Bird is trying for a second time to beat Miller. Miller beat her 12 years ago by 11 points. This week, we hear from both of them about why they want this job.
I love this job. It's a great job. And I feel really, really indebted to Iowans to give me a chance quite a few times to do the job. Because what I love about it is you get to use the law to serve the interest of ordinary Iowans. Our consumer protection, our criminal prosecution, the work we've done on opioids, and our work for farmers on fertilizer. And you know, I love it as much as before. I'm energized by it. I'm challenged by it. I have this just incredible staff that I work with. That is part of the reason I want to run again and serve again, and just feel real satisfaction when I come home that I've done my best and I've done things for Iowans. Why let go of something like that? That's why I want to do it again.
I want to serve as Attorney General because as a prosecutor, I know how important that job is. That's the top law enforcement official in Iowa. And as I travel our 99 counties campaigning, I'm hearing that our current Attorney General has retired on the job. Even when I'm meeting with law enforcement, I am surprised that most of the sheriffs I meet with have never met him. And we've got the support, as of today, of 74 current county sheriffs, both Republicans and Democrats. It's time for a new Attorney General.
So why does it matter if they haven't met him?
Well, because the Attorney General is the top law enforcement official and needs to serve the whole state. That's what I do as Attorney General. Need to work with law enforcement, learn about the crime trends around the state, and be there to help them, work with them, prosecute those cases, and serve victims, help public safety. That's an important part of the AG's job. It's not one we hear about because he's not doing it, but it's important.
Wouldn't he be working more closely with the county attorney, though, rather than the sheriff?
You do work closely also with county attorneys, but without law enforcement, there are no cases for a county attorney to bring. I've been a county attorney for 6 years and a lawyer for 21, and I know that relationship with law enforcement is the most important one that I have in my county.
Anybody that would say that I'm not putting in the work and not energized and enjoy this job is just on another planet. That's just totally false. I thrive in this job and working with our staff, delegating and supervising, and then jumping into a case like the opioids. I've been very much involved in the national case concerning opioids. And as I told my staff at one point, I've got 3 jobs this year. I'm Attorney General of Iowa. I'm president of the National Association of Attorney Generals, which is a bigger job than I anticipated because we're trying really hard to hold everybody together. And of course, I'm a candidate for re-election. So the idea that somehow I'm retired on the job is just about the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time.
Well, you talk about, she's making the point that you need to have in your position relationships with sheriffs. Do you work more with a county attorney rather than a sheriff, or what's your perspective on that?
Well, our basic fundamental relationship is with the county attorneys because we do cases with them. In the smaller to medium-sized counties, when they have a murder or a sexual abuse case, they'll often invite our area prosecution team, headed by Scott Brown, to come in and work with them. And that's been a great relationship, an incredible relationship. So our relationship with law enforcement is through these very difficult cases. And it's a strong relationship. It's a rich relationship. It's respect on both sides. And you really can't have a better relationship than that, I think.
This arrangement that you had to have with the governor, where you almost have to get permission or her okay to move forward with some cases, how much does that restrict you?
It does. It restricts us somewhat, but you know, not in a substantial way given all the things we do and the other things we do, that, you know, it doesn't apply to the multi-state cases that, you know, the tobacco case, the opioids case, those kinds of cases. It involves basically suits against the federal government. And, you know, we'd like to be involved in them, but in quite a few cases we're not able to. But, you know, I've got 23 other Democratic colleagues. They carry ahead and do those cases without me. So it's not something that's major. And, you know, we have developed sort of a relationship with the governor's office on how we sign off or don't sign off on those cases.
What happened there was the current Attorney General, Tom Miller, was suing the Trump administration right and left. And the legislature took away his ability to do that. And he made an agreement with the governor that she had to approve any national litigation that he would sign Iowa onto. That took away his independence, but that was independence that he was exercising, I would say, against what Iowans want. Today, he has admitted that he has not once sued the Biden administration.
But isn't that his role, though, if he felt that the Trump administration had done things wrong? Isn't that his role to look at that and get involved if he sees fit?
It is the role of the Attorney General to hold the federal government accountable, and that is something that I will do. We see some serious overreach coming out of the Biden administration, whether it was the COVID vaccine mandates, what's coming out of the EPA hurting agriculture and farmers, or the student loan cancellation that had nothing to do with being based on law. Those are lawsuits that I would be part of. Our current Attorney General hasn't sued the Biden administration once.
But that's Democrat with the Democrat. He was Democrat going after a Republican president. You're a Republican going after a Democratic president. Isn't that how it's more likely to happen?
No, and it is true that he is liberal. That is where his politics lie. But I see the job just like I do as a prosecutor, as Guthrie County attorney. I don't know the politics of the people that I charge with crimes, and if I did, it wouldn't matter. What I'm talking about is enforcing the law and Constitution, not politics. It's a legal argument. We need to get back to following the Constitution in this country.
You tried to sue the Trump administration numerous times. Never once have you tried to sue the Biden administration.
Well, we were involved in some of the Trump litigation and thought it was important to do that on some issues. You know, have not seen a case in the Biden administration that we want to file based on the policy or based on the law. You know, he's less expansive on what he does than Trump did on the law, so there's less cases available. And, you know, and there are Republican attorney generals that bring those cases, so those cases are brought. So that's not a big consequence one way or another for us.
What about the decisions where you've made to recuse yourself? How do you come to that point?
Well, first of all, it's very rare that I've recused myself really in two major cases in 40 years. One had to do with AFSCME and collective bargaining and the changes. The other is currently the abortion case. And, you know, in those two cases,
and the fetal heartbeat one specifically, right?
Specifically, exactly. And, you know, in the abortion cases, you know, we have an ethical responsibility to zealously represent our client. And, you know, I wondered about whether I could do that and whether it would be better ethically to have someone else do it, and decided to do it. But I did it based on ethical considerations, and as I said, it's very, very rare, twice in 40 years.
Let's say Deidre DeJear's governor, you're Attorney General. Mm-hmm. She could have the same arrangement with you and limit what you're allowed to do with the Biden administration.
Actually, it's not possible because that arrangement was an agreement made between our current governor and our current Attorney General. And so that does not apply to any other people. So I will be an independent Attorney General when I'm Attorney General. So you would not
agree to such an agreement if she proposed that?
I would not.
Okay. What about the situations where because of that, and maybe following that, he has recused himself in a couple of cases? Can you see yourself recusing, unless it's a case you were directly involved in, obviously?
Yeah, so recusal means there's some kind of serious conflict of interest. I don't foresee that happening, but should that occur, then obviously I would follow my legal duty. What our current Attorney General has done is he has decided not to defend certain laws based on what I would say his political expediency, because at times he will defend them, at times he won't. So it doesn't really have to do with an ethical issue there. It's about whether he'll defend the laws. When I'm Attorney General, I will defend the laws that the legislature passes.
So if there's some abortion law that the state has, let's say fetal heartbeat doesn't happen here, how would you defend something that you morally don't agree with?
Yeah, well, that's a good example that you're looking at there, because I am 100% pro-life. Our Attorney General that we have now refused to defend that heartbeat law, but in the past he has defended other pro-life laws, including one just this last year. So he's been on both sides of that issue. The way that I see it is the legislature makes the law. It's my job to defend it under our laws and Constitution.
So you don't see any instance of a matter that you would not be able to defend on the state's behalf?
I think the only problem would be is if it was something that was truly unconstitutional. I have a duty to uphold the Constitution. But as far as deciding what should be in a particular law, that's a legislative function, not an executive function.
Up next, the differences when it comes to drug policy.